Library Board on Wednesday, May 20th, 2026 at 7:03 p.m.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't.
Trustee Shealer?
Present.
Trustee Kadir, running late. Trustee Schoenfeld?
Here.
Treasurer Botello?
Present.
Secretary Toy?
Here.
Vice President Rosansky is absent with prior notice. And President Key.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No one.
We did not receive any public comment. Would anyone in the room like to make public comment?
All right, thank you. I move to bump up item 5A from new business, action on staff health insurance and benefits renewal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Yes, one of our special guests are here. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, we're all getting set up here. My name is Amy Abel, and this is Tyler Loney. We're here from the O'Leary Group, so it's a pleasure to be here with you all.
This is a PDF.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that okay then?
Yep, totally fine. Yep, absolutely. Are you all okay if I sit here?
Of course.
Okay. Okay.
Is that good for everyone? Hello.
I'll read that, okay? All right, so our Blue Cross renewal was received in early April. So our initial increase for the current grandfather plan was 19.6%. Now, you're gonna see a couple of spreadsheets that are in here, and you're gonna actually see on the spreadsheet, it showed that shows it as 20.01%. So 19.6 is what comes across from Blue Cross. One of the things that we always do is we collect a census, and the census is then used to create the spreadsheet that you will see, basically looking at what's the current plan, what's the renewal, and then what are some plan options. So there was one change on the census that the library had that Blue Cross didn't have at the time when they created their renewal. So that's the reason for that difference. 3 alternate Blue Cross options. One of the things that we always do is we look at alternate options. Are there plan changes that could be made to reduce that renewal increase? So there was 3 options that were presented for potential rate reductions, but would have resulted in an increased deductible, and the next level up for deductible would have went from $2,500 to $4,000 or $5,000. And decreased coinsurance. So currently, once somebody meets the deductible, the plan pays at 100%. In these plan options, it would have meant that the plan only pays at 80%, and then the employee has, or the member has, an additional coinsurance. So I'm just going to, and I'll come back to this slide, but just to take you so you can see what this initial renewal looked like. And again, right now, we're just looking at the one grandfathered high deductible health plan. And then you can see how we break it down between, employee, we have 28 with employee coverage, 5 with employee and spouse, 3 with employee and children, and currently nobody is taking full family coverage. So then, these were the alternative options, and so just to kind of walk you through this. Oh, sorry, these were, ignore this HMO stuff down here, but these were the HSA options that when we increased the deductible, okay, we could get down to a 6.1% or 5.65%, but again, we were looking at drastically increasing those deductibles. So The other thing we did is we requested quotes from other carriers. And so we went to United Healthcare. And United Healthcare did offer us 3 options as well for either the same or lower premium costs. However, none of those 3 plans matched the current plan. So for instance, the first plan that they offered had tiered benefits, which means if you use one provider network, then you would get a certain level of benefits. If you used another provider network, then you would get a lower benefit. The other 2 plans that were offered, that were shown, that would have had some savings to our current renewal, is a narrow network. So one of the benefits that we have with the current high deductible plan or HSA plan is that it is using Blue Cross's largest provider network. They have the PPO plan, the PPO network that Blue Cross has is the largest provider network, significantly larger than the United Healthcare. And what United Healthcare was showing was their narrow network. So it would not be an apples to apples comparison by any stretch. There would be significant member disruption. So what we were able to do is we were able to take that UHC quote and use it as leverage, and we went back to Blue Cross, and we requested and received 10% rate relief. So they came back and said, listen, we really want to be able to stay with Blue Cross, and they said, that's fine, we'll bring the renewal down to 10%. I have to tell you, I'm sure many of you have heard from others that you work with, 10% is a gift. Yeah. It is 100% a gift. The 19s, I mean, honestly, even when we got the 19, takes your breath away, but we are seeing our clients get anywhere from 25, 28, 30, and 40% increases. So we were really thrilled with being able to get it down to that 10%.
And I have spoken to other library directors, and the lowest that anyone else has gotten is 12%. The average is the 20% as well, even with different providers.
So, and again, this was just we just wanted to kind of give a glimpse of what the UHC options look like. So, and then this just shows our revised renewal, what that looked like. So, our next step was talking about an HMO plan option. So following last year's renewal meeting with the board, I know when Catherine was here, there was a lot of discussion about we need to get with the staff and with the union to talk about, to really do some good benefits education. So I was here, we had 2 meetings here in person, like July, August timeframe, and then we did another one in September, and then we did another virtual one in October, and had some really good conversations. It was basically just a series of benefit education sessions. We did a complete overview of the current plan, why we're grandfathered, what does that mean? We talked about insurance segments. How does Blue Cross look at your renewal as a mid-market group? And again, I won't take a ton of time going into, Insurance 101, but there are 3 main segments of groups as far in Blue Cross's eyes, really in all the carriers' eyes. And you all fall into that mid-market segment where it's looking at what are your demographics. It's looking a little bit at your health, is the plan a healthy plan or a sick plan, or how is the plan performing? But then a lot of it, because of your size, is also the pool, the area, the other groups that are also insured by Blue Cross that are your same size, in that, they call it the pool, what's all in that pool. So we talked through that. They also wanted to know about Alera. How did we come to, Glenn Catholic? No. But no, how did GCG at the time and then Alera, come to start working with the library, and they asked valid questions about, and how do we get paid, and how does this all work? So I thought it was a really good process that we went through. During these meetings, there was definitely an interest in adding, is there a way that we could add an HMO plan to this offering, to have at least a second plan option for people to choose from? And so we all agreed that that would be something we would do during this renewal process. So we reviewed 5 HMO plans. I do want to also step back and just say, we also asked the question, we wanted to confirm with Blue Cross, can we retain if we retain our current PPO plan, yet add an HMO option, would we retain that grandfathered status? And that PPO plan would retain its grandfathered status, even if we add an HMO, regardless of the number of folks who would move off of the PPO into the HMO. So we have already confirmed that. So we looked at the Blue Advantage HMO options, and there were 5 options that were available to us. So we did look at all of those, and basically, just to sort of walk you through this chart, this first or the second column is the co-pays. So basically meaning $40 to see your primary care physician, $60 to see a specialist with a referral, and $350 is the ER copay. So you can see there's really no ER copay options under that $350. They're really trying to do everything they can so that people aren't using the emergency room as a, as a doctor's office, as a substitute for the doctor's office. So when we look at 00, it basically means there's no deductible to these plans. So there's no, upfront deductible. And the coinsurance is 100%. So it means anything after, so if I go to the primary care doctor and they want me to go have a test, an x-ray, a blood test, an MRI, they're gonna write a referral. As long as I have that referral when I go, that service is gonna be covered at 100%. So that's the plan design. And then this next column stands for the out-of-pocket expense. So they do put a limit on a $1,500 per person to a maximum of $3,000 per family out-of-pocket limit. So that basically means if at any point in the calendar year, if my co-pays that I pay reach $1,500, then for the remainder of the calendar year, I won't have to pay co-pays anymore. And then that final column is the prescription drug co-pays. So, and we basically have different levels of preferred, non-preferred. So if it's a preferred generic drug, I won't pay a copay. If it's a non-preferred generic drug, I'm going to pay a $10 copay. 35 and 75 stand for preferred and non-preferred brand name drugs. And then 150 and 250 is for the specialty medications. One of the big reasons that, there's a lot of different reasons for the increases that people are seeing. The prescription drugs is by far the biggest reason. It is the number of specialty medications that are out there. It is.
Which is a good thing.
It is a good thing. You're right, 100%. I'm with you. Because those specialty medications that people are on are keeping them out of the hospital, and
Right.
so you're not seeing a hospital bill. However, it is some of these prescriptions are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. And so the employee's paying $150, so as their copay, and so it's a long-term thing, but it does stop that hospitalization 100%. So, but that's what we're seeing. Okay, so Alera's recommendation would be to adopt. We were looking at MIBA H2026, which is this third plan option. This is the lowest PCP copay option, and the price point that we're looking at is, we feel, would be the right price point. We also feel for offering an HMO, this is going to take some education, and we've been talking about this with Valerie and Cassandra. This is going to take some real education, and I applaud the union reps who have been part of these meetings, because they have been asking the questions, and I think they'll be part of that education process as well, walking folks through, because it's a completely different concept than what we've been working through. So allow me to just sort of walk you through what we wanted to do. We have no idea what people might do, how many people might make the change. And I think it was Lisi who came up and said, you also have to think about, what about people who have previously waived the current plan that might choose to come back on because an HMO is being offered. So this is literally, what did I say?
Pull it out of the hat.
Throwing the mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. I mean, this is, yes, pulling it out of a hat is probably a better. So we took our current counts, 28 employees, 5 employee spouse, 3 employee children, and then 0 family. And then we tried to break it out. And we said, okay, so what if we have 10 who go to the HMO for employees? 3 employee spouse, 1 employee child. We have no family, so at this point we'll just put 0, okay? And then the remainder stay in the PPO. Some folks still want that PPO. They want that flexibility. With the HMO, your primary care physician directs all your care. You have to make sure that you are going to that primary care physician for everything and getting those referrals. And especially people who are using maybe specialists, they want to have that flexibility to pick whatever specialist that they want. So this wouldn't necessarily just be that, hey, this is a much lower out-of-pocket plan, let's do this. So I think we'll still see a lot of people stay on the PPO. Not to mention the HRA that you offer is an excellent option for them to mitigate those costs. So just using this scenario, our total annual cost for the current plan before our renewal was $648,222. I also need to back up. This does not include HRA dollars at all. This is just straight Blue Cross premiums. If we just renewed the PPO only, then we'd be looking at $713. Okay, that 10% increase. Our total annual cost, if we did the PPO HMO using that enrollment as shown, would be $628,820. So it would actually result in a decrease of what?
So does it seem like a no-brainer then? Why are we discussing it?
Yeah. Okay, fine.
I mean, like, we're gonna save money and we're gonna give people more options. We're gonna save money and they're potentially gonna save money if they wanna go that route, then
Right.
what's to talk about?
Right. And as somebody who's in the benefits profession, I love how the district is really committed to communicating this well to the employees.
I have a question. So
Yep.
then the more, because we don't know how many are gonna switch, so this is just a guess, but the more that do switch, lowers it for.
Correct.
Okay.
For the
Correct.
library and the employees.
Okay.
Right, because just looking at these two, the difference in the rates, the HMOs is a lower rate.
Mhm.
The one difference being, and Amy just mentioned this, is that typically, and the recommendation of both the library and our consultant, is that HRAs are typically only offered for PPO plans. The reason being that with the PPO, you have to pay $500 right off the bat. And we get reimbursed. So a lot of the staff, the reason why they were asking for HMO is because that's a lot of upfront cost. And the reverse of that is because if you choose the HMO, you don't have that upfront cost. Typically, employers do not offer the HRA to mitigate that cost because it's not there with that option.
Good.
We did this is something that we had shared with, administration and with the union, that, just to look at what is that out-of-pocket expense comparison, so the folks who are on that PPO plan, are paying after the HRA and everything. If they hit the max, they could be paying $850 if they're a single, $1,700 as a family, but they also have a premium difference, an additional premium of $661 for single, $37.40 for family.
And will you recommend staying with Blue Cross?
We do recommend staying with Blue Cross, yeah. To move to United Healthcare would be significant disruption from a provider standpoint, because although they showed some nice plans, they were much more narrow networks, and I think your
And is it true that I'll put this on the record, United Healthcare is notorious for being more denial happy than, say, some other providers?
So
I've heard that.
I have heard it too, and I have
Okay.
heard it too, and I will tell you, we have clients who say, don't even bring me United Healthcare, but they are the next biggest player in the Chicagoland area. We have a number of United Healthcare clients who are very happy, but
Fair enough.
I've heard that, I've heard it as well.
But what this is trying to show here is one of the reasons why we're not recommending an HRA for the HMO plan as well is because the out-of-pocket costs for employees, whether they take HMO or PPO, with the current HRA would be almost exactly the same.
Mhm.
So we would be giving equitable benefits, whether you take the HMO or the PPO.
Fair enough.
If there's aren't any other questions about the medical, the only other item that I just wanted to share was for our vision plan, VSP has provided a renewal proposal for the same plan at current rates for the next 2 years until July 1st of 2028. And then Principal has also provided their renewal proposal for the same plan, and this is for the disability, at current rates until next year for a 1-year period. So there's no increase.
Pretty simple.
Anybody have any questions? I would like to move to approve the health insurance and benefits renewal presented by Amy Abel and Tyler Loney of Valera Group.
As recommended.
As
Approved
recommended.
for recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, I second that.
What's up? Yep, when you're ready.
Trustee Schiller,
Yes.
trustee Kadir,
Yes.
trustee Schoenfeld,
Yes.
treasurer Vitello,
Yes.
secretary Toy,
Yes.
president Keel.
Yes.
6-0 passes.
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come today.
Yes,
Good to see you.
appreciate
Thanks a
all
lot.
the-
Thank you for the
The work
10%.
begins.
That's our part, yeah.
So the short version of the presentation could have been, it's cheaper than like. All right. I mean, I know you gotta justify it, but like.
No. All right,
Thank you. Have a good evening.
More flexibility. All right, I'll take it. Good, works.
I move to bump up item 5B, discussion about budget, special reserve, and investment strategies with Jamie Rackman of Maristem
I
Advisors.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? All right. When
No,
you're ready,
Jamie,
then
we
whenever
really
he's
want
ready.
We really want you to hear the rest of the meeting, so we'll all vote against, make you sit through it
I
all.
have his presentation in my email, I'm just trying to get to Outlook.
Just, we're gonna ask you for your opinion on everything afterwards.
There it is, okay. Thank you.
She's gonna, oh, perfect, where should I sit? Stand?
Um,
You'll swap.
Right up front.
Yep, in front. You're okay with that?
Yep.
Welcome back.
Thank you, nice to see you all.
Put some floodlights on you.
Brought the paper version, but.
Almost there. Outlook's just being slow. Jamie, do you mind,
What's that?
since we have a couple of new trustees, do you mind introducing yourself and talking about Maristem in general?
Absolutely. Yeah, he doesn't have to stand up.
Oh,
What's that?
You can sit right there.
Okay, yeah, that's easier.
Perfect.
you want to just pass me my stuff?
Presentation.
Sure. We'll play musical chairs.
So, yeah, well, we're working on that. I'm Jamie Racklin, my company's Maristem Advisors, and
I started about 8 years ago after working with municipal issuers across the state with their bond issues, mostly with debt. And my clients kept asking me about other things besides bonds, to the point where I thought, you know, maybe this is an unmet need in the industry, is just to help people with their basic finances as well as the debt. So I'm a registered municipal advisor. I'm regulated by the MSRB and the SEC, but I've expanded what I do to encompass really a broad range of financial advice that goes across budgeting, planning, borrowing, of course, planning for projects, investments, or helping people with investments. I don't do the actual investing. Policies, board education, which I've been here helping the board with previously. You know, just basically anything related to finance, budget, and planning for my clients. And it's been spectacular. I've worked with over 80 library districts at this point in the state, which is really incredible when I think about it. And it's because the need's there. You know, it's libraries as a group, good at libraries, not so much background in finance. So it's been a really helpful thing for the industry, which is kind of nice. So it's what's brought me here tonight, which I appreciate you having me out. And I gotta get the presentation up. But we have it there? No. Not yet.
We do now.
Okay, great. So there's a few things to talk about tonight. Some is a little bit of background, might be repetition for some of you who heard me speak before, but for the new members of the board, it was worth, we thought, taking a minute just to talk about the levy. Get it up for me.
Would it be more helpful for you, Jamie, to sit here and just?
Maybe
from
then I
here?
page through, is that
Yeah.
okay?
That's fine.
Otherwise we'll be coordinating.
And we're back.
All right, so really 3 topics for us tonight. A little disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an auditor. How do we get this to?
Just mouse click, I think.
There we go. Oh, okay, yeah. So 3 things to cover tonight, and I tried to make it concise so that we don't last too long. One is just to go over the levy, because that's a very important part of what you do as trustees, is to figure out what you want to ask for in taxes. And then we're going to talk about these fund transfers. You did a fund transfer earlier this year of $2.5 million, and we'll talk about what's appropriate for the next step with respect to your funds. And then lastly, the real topic that we were coming out here for originally was to talk about investment strategy and what to do with the really sizable amount of money you have to invest. So they're all connected, actually. They weave a pretty good story taken together. But let's start with the levy. Just real quickly, so every year for your new board members, you're going to go through a financial cycle, right? Which starts with the budget, which Valerie's working on now, which is your actual spending plan for the library for the year. You know, it's born out of what you spent last year, the changes that have to be made in the coming year, your revenue, putting all that together and coming up with a spending plan. Out of that budget, you end up with a budget and appropriation ordinance that has to be done by the 4th Tuesday in September. I think you do it earlier. Most people do it earlier. That's just the legal deadline. And what the difference between the budget and the budget and appropriation ordinance, unfortunately named, is that the appropriation ordinance sets spending limits, right? Amounts you can't go over by category and by fund. Okay, so I'll give you a good example. Is if you have a project and you think you're going to spend $600,000 on it in the coming year, but the whole project's $2.8 million, and you don't know if you're going to spend the whole thing or not, you might budget for $600,000 because that's what you think you're going to spend, but you're going to appropriate for $2.8 million because that's what you might spend, and you don't want to go over that. So you appropriate the larger number, but you're doing that line item by line item. So when you see that budget and appropriation ordinance, it's going to come out to a great big number. It's going to look a lot bigger than the budget, and you just have to go, yep, I understand. That's why we're doing it that way. Now, the appropriation ordinance also also has to be bigger than your levy, which we're gonna talk about in a minute, because you can't levy, you can't ask for taxes in an amount more than you appropriate. So sometimes you have a reason, doesn't always happen, but sometimes you wanna levy an amount in the coming year that's bigger than you intend to spend and bigger than you would normally appropriate, but because you wanna be able to levy that amount, you have to appropriate extra so it covers the levy too. So your appropriation ordinance covers not only what you want to allow yourself potentially to spend on any given line item, but also has to be bigger than any levy that you're going to potentially do as well. So that's why you have to look at that budget and appropriation ordinance with a little bit I don't know what the right word is, but you have to allow for the fact that it's not telling you a whole heck of a lot of information. It's the budget that's important. And then by the first Tuesday in December, you have to pass your levy. We're going to talk a lot about the levy in a minute. But the levy goes, you levy for different funds. Okay, so you levy for your operating funds. You levy for your IMRF. That's your tax request. If we didn't know what the levy was, it's your request for taxes. You levy for building. You levy for FICA. You levy for all these different things. So that levy ordinance outlines the amounts that you're going to levy for each fund, and that has to be passed by the first Tuesday in December. All right, so let's, and it's important to get that levy right because it's about 88% of your revenue, right? You don't get that right, you don't get your revenue, that's not a good thing. And it's happened before. Not here, but, all right, so now this is super important. This is the most important thing to differentiate when we're talking about the levy. There's the levy, that's the library's request to the county for what you want them to put on the tax bills. Okay, it's just a request, it's not the amount that's actually gonna happen, it's just a request. Then the county takes those figures and does a bunch of calculations and figures out what's actually gonna go on the tax bills, all right? And ultimately, the tax extension is gonna be the lesser of what you ask for and the formula that they calculate. So if you ask in the levy for too little money, they're gonna say, you asked for less than the legal limit. We're gonna give you less than the legal limit, because why would we give you more than you asked for? But if you ask for more, then you'll get the legal limit. So if the goal is to get the legal limit, right, of your taxing authority, you wanna make sure that that levy is a little bit inflated to be over, comfortably over what you think you can get, just in case there's some kind of mistake. Cook County, you're lucky, there's a little fudge factor that enters into the equation, which I'll show you in a minute, that protects you against under levying a little bit, but still, the theory is the same. Okay, so how does that work with the levy? So every year we kind of know what that legal limit's gonna come out to. And this is how I want you to think about the levy when you're approaching it, right? Over on the left. So what happens is the prior year extension, in other words, the amount that was on the tax bills in the prior year, right? So the final tax extension from the prior year gets increased by inflation, CPI, the Consumer Price Index, okay? So it goes, you get to increase that by CPI, and then you have what we call new property. It's stuff that wasn't in the district in the prior year, like a new business. It's not an increase in the value of your home. It's something that wasn't there. A new business, a new hospital, something that might have been tax exempt previously that comes onto the tax rolls, and you get to tax that at your tax rate also. Now, and if you do that math, it comes out to what your new maximum extension is. Pretty close. It's not the exact formula, but it's pretty darn close, all right? So if we take 2024 as an example, that's the levy that you passed in 2023. I'm sorry, it's the levy that you passed in 2024. We call that the 2024 levy. Your 2023 extension was $7,580,000, okay? And CPI that applied to that year was 3.4%. So you get the 3.4% on the 7.5 million, and then you also had about an additional 0.017% of new property. Not very much new property. You're pretty built out. But for TIFs, you're not going to see a whole heck of a lot of new property. So that was just 0.017. But you do that math, it comes out to around 7.863 million. All right. Now this is a good example because if we look at your 2024 levy, you only levied 7.826 million, which is less than the legal limit, okay? So, in the absence of anything else, the county would have looked at that and said, the actual levy is below the maximum extension, we're gonna give you the lesser amount. But in Cook County only, as near as I can figure, there might be one or two other two that do it, but I haven't come across them. Cook County just allows for people not paying their taxes. They say that's not fair, so they add on 3% to whatever you levy. Okay, they just add it on. It's just what they do. And so that added $234,000 to your levy, which brought you to $8,061,000, which is more than the $7,863,000, and so you got what you're legally allowed to, thanks to that add-on. Okay. So now in 2025, what's going to happen? That base, that $7,863,000, is going to be used as the new prior year extension, right? This year, and this is the levy that you just filed last November or so. CPI for this year is 2.9%. I figure the new property is going to be about the same. And if we do that math, we should find that the extension, when you get your tax extension reports this year, should be right around 8.1 million. Okay, so that should be your revenue. That's revenue that starts this year and in the end of the year, so that's actually your revenue for 2027 for the budget that you're working on right now. All right. Gets kind of confusing there, but that's your tax levy money for next year, by and large. Okay. So each year, the current extension becomes, the next year's base. Inflation component, you can't go over 5%. So we had some years where inflation was over 5%, and the CPI was just 5%. For 2026, next year, that 2.9 is going to be 2.7. So when you do the levy this year, we're going to be figuring it around 2.7%. Last year was 2.9. All right. So every year, it's not that big a mystery. As long as you do that levy calculation, make sure you levy more than that, you should be just fine with getting all of the revenue that the library's able to get. Okay, so that's the levy. Let's talk. That was actually the easy one. I hope you're not lost. But please, any questions about the levy before we move on? Is that all clear? Follow that? Okay. All right. So let's talk about reserves, because a lot of you've accumulated a lot of money, right? And the question is, where should it go? How should it be allocated? What's good? What's appropriate balances? So let's start with what the library's current reserves are. Right now, we had a. You maintain a bunch of different funds. I mentioned that at the beginning. Okay, so you've got your general fund, which is where all your operations take place, but then you have restricted funds where you can only use money in those funds for the specific purposes. So you've got, let's skip building and maintenance for a minute, but the ones that are on Social Security, liability, workman's comp, right? You levy for those purposes, and the money that comes in can only be used for those purposes, right? You can't transfer that money to other funds. It's just there. Unemployment can only be used for unemployment. And if we look at your fund balances, that's the accumulated resources that you've got in that fund, mostly from taxes being in excess of your expenditures, right? That's how you build up excess. We have fund balances there in that first column, and we have, I just put your expenditures to compare in the second column. So you've built up about $260,000 of excess in Social Security. Your expenditures each year are about $315,000, and so you've got about 83% excess fund balance, in your Social Security fund, and so on and so forth. And if you're 50%, 60%, I'll get ahead of the game a little bit. Your library policy is fund balances of at least 50%. Okay, so but if you're 50% to 100%, that's a nice, comfortable, healthy, happy balance. And you can see you're pretty much there. We're working to bring down that workman's comp a little bit when we do the levy and stuff like that. Building and maintenance is actually negative, right? Someone say, how do we have a negative balance in building and maintenance? Well, you spent a lot of money the last couple of years out of that fund, so you overspend that fund. we can levy that up and bring it back over time. If you wanted to, you could transfer money into it to take care of it. It's not too big a worry, right? If we want to talk about, if someone really bothers someone, that negative balance, we can talk about fixing it, but I'd rather just leave it off for now. The big one is your general fund, okay? So if you look at your 2026 fund balance that we would project based on your operations and 25 and everything else, you'd be around 13.5 million against expenditures of 6.5 million. So that's over 2 times what you're spending in a year. That's a lot. Okay, that's high. Now, you did transfer $2.5 million early this year. Okay, so we brought that down from 206% down to 168%, which is still pretty big, and we're still going to talk about transfers, but that's going to be a very important difference right there, as you're going to see in a minute. But so basically, this is just a slide to show you where the money is relative to what you're spending. No, there's no story here, so to speak. I just wanted you to see that. Now, where it becomes important is that there's someone running around right now challenging these fund balances, and he's challenging everybody. Anybody who's accumulated too much money is filing a legal challenge based on what they call the Miller Rule. And the Miller Rule, the Miller Rule says that if your fund balance plus uncollected taxes is more than 2 times your annual expenditures, and your 3-year average expenditures in that fund, then you've got too much money, and he's suing districts on behalf of his clients, saying you owe them money back. Okay, so if we do that math, the way it is in the calculation, forget about all this stuff that you did this year, the 2.5 million. I just wanted you to see the calculation. Your 3-year average expenditures, which would be 23, 24, and 25, because that's what's audited, was 5.3 million. Your fund balance, based on that basis, plus uncollected taxes, was 14 million. That gave you an excess over 2 times of expenditures of $3.9 million. All right. So on that basis, if this guy wanted to challenge your taxes, he'd probably be successful. And so we kind of want to do that. Now, you've transferred out 2.5 million, right, which is a big help, big chunk of that. So we want to, it'd take 3.9 million to get it down to 200%. You've already done 2.5, and we've got a little more to go if we want to start protecting you against those challenges. I don't know why you haven't gotten them yet, to tell you the truth.
And I'm grateful we haven't.
And you should be grateful you haven't.
Can you talk about how special reserve cannot have the same dispute?
Oh yeah, thank you. So so what's in that's super important, and I appreciate you reminding me. So in the special reserve, in the special reserve is something you set up. The law lets you establish that, and you can establish it for capital expenditures that are coming down the road, and you have a plan to spend that. It's your special reserve plan. And because you have a plan, you can accumulate money there to pay for that plan. And a taxpayer can't attack it the way they could attack the general fund. Okay, so that's why if we have a project coming up and we have too much money in our general fund, we can move that into, or you can move that into the special reserve fund. It's protected and it's there, for example, for your contemplated branch. Okay, so that becomes very important. If you're transferring money out of the general fund to protect it, it's going to go into the special reserve. Thanks, Valerie. Keep me on track. That's good. Okay, so so we can look at. So now here's the meat of the whole presentation. Here is how much money should we keep in the general fund? How much should we move into the special reserve? Okay, so I've given you a couple of a range of options here. So if we start out with the 13,530,000 that I was projecting for you at the end of this year, of which you've already transferred 2.5 million. The additional transfer you see up there on the third line is the additional transfer that would bring your general fund balance down to that level of funding, 6 months of expenditures, 10 months of expenditures, 12 months of expenditures, or just to get you down to the Miller ratio, okay? And you can see that varies from 3.4 million roughly to 9.6 million, okay? Is what we would leave you, and the transfers range from 7.6 million down to 1.4 million. Okay, so your fund balance policy is not less than 6 months. Okay, so that would be the column in the left. If you wanted to go all the way down to the 6 months, you transfer an additional $7.6 million into the special reserve, okay? I don't think that's a great idea because, as you saw this last year, taxes didn't come in until December, January, right? That's 9 months into your fiscal year, okay? So I'm thinking that, I'll say that next, I'm thinking that 10 months, is kind of a safe minimum. 12 months is not bad either. We could talk about that. But, and you're well under the Miller ratio, right? The Miller ratio says we only have to do another 1.4 million. Okay, and it's only going to get better as your expenditures come up. So we're well within the Miller ratio. The question just becomes, and that arrow isn't a leading witness there. It's just there. The question is, you don't want to do 6 months. I think that's too low. 10 months, 12 months. That's where I would recommend. Somewhere between another $4 to $5 million of transfer into the special reserve fund. And if you do that, we just focus on the middle columns. Then you'd end up with a reserve fund balance of $10 to $12 million, which is a nice starting point. And you don't want to forget that you have other maintenance needs. Like, we can't use all of that for a branch, right? Because the library's got to get taken care of. But that's a great start for, it's suggesting that you have some significant amount of money to start talking about a branch with, which is sort of the next discussion that we're going to get to eventually, as you start thinking about that seriously. So we can come back to this chart, but that's kind of where I would have you be, is in those middle two columns somewhere. Boy, I just stubbornly refuse to go in the right direction on this thing. Okay, let's talk about investment of library funds now, because now you've got this, as you saw, $13 million. Okay, so.
I apologize.
Yep. Did I forget something else?
No, but I forgot to ask you this question, so I figured I'd ask you now. For special reserves, can you talk about that it can only be spent on certain, like what that looks like, that special reserves can only be spent on certain things versus the general fund, and why we have money in the general fund?
Sure. So, well, make sure I'm answering your question. So on the special reserve, once the money, just the idea behind, remember before I was saying that money in the IMRF can only be sent on the IMRF fund, and so on and so forth. In the special reserve, it's the same thing. You have a plan. You can only, once that money goes in, it's a one-way door, all right? And thank you, because that was another thing I wanted to say. It's a one-way door. Once it's in there, it can only be spent on your plan. Now, you could change your plan. Maybe there wasn't a branch before. You changed the plan. Now there's a branch, right? But once it's in there, it can only be spent on that plan. And that plan is capital, only capital. No operations, nothing like that. And let me say one more thing real quick, because I wanted to say it before, is that's another reason to leave the general fund balance a little bigger, because in the general fund, you can use it for capital, you can use it for operations, you have complete flexibility. So you could always use it towards that plan. It's just that once you move it into the special reserve, you can only use it for the plan. So that's a bias towards keeping a little bigger general fund balance too.
Can you explain what capital is versus operations?
Oh yeah, sorry, thank you. That's what you're getting at. Yeah, so capital is hard building costs. It's your HVAC, it's the walls, it's the windows, anything that's going to go bad with the building, the roof. A new branch would be capital. Thank you.
Yeah. Furniture, things of that nature. Yeah.
Stuff that, repainting. It wouldn't be computers.
Or books.
It wouldn't be your books or staffing.
It is computers.
You could get,
Capital
Yeah,
is.
all right.
physical, the items.
Okay.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
The reason why this is important for the board to know, and I just want to interject this for the sake of having it on the record, is because of what's been going on specifically in Cook County with the release of the tax money being very late, and there are a lot of libraries looking into this right now. I think right now we have collected 50% of the taxes of where we should be. I'm not exactly right with those numbers, but there's a lot going on in Cook County right now. So we do also want to leave money in the general fund for operations, for paying for staff. So we don't want to transfer too much into special reserves. We have to find that balance, which is why Jamie's here. And our plan, as far as what's on file legally, is just that we use special reserves for capital needs. So we don't have a very specific plan, but that's why we have done the capital needs assessment that we have on file. That's why we're gonna be doing the renovation. We have all those on record. So we do have projects to spend that money on, but our legally filed plan is just to use them on capital expenses. So I wanted everybody to be clear on what capital meant.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And when we ultimately, we have a projection, not showing it to you tonight, but we've worked on this projection. The projection does have those capital needs in it. And so when we try and figure out how much of that money in the special reserve is available for a branch, we're gonna take all those capital needs into account, make sure we can pay for them. And it's only the extra above and beyond that we would say is available for a branch. So, okay, so when it comes to investing, you have to just.
Excuse me, Jim.
Yes,
Dave, did you
please.
have a question?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
just clarification on the capital projects. That money doesn't have to be like earmarked for a specific project. It can be any capital project.
Correct, yes.
Okay, all
It
right.
has to fit within your plan, your
Okay,
plan has to
okay.
encompass those needs. But yeah, it's not like this dollar's for that,
Okay.
specific.
Just
purpose.
wanted
Yep,
to
no, that's
get
great.
that clarification. Thank you.
A lot of slush in there. So, slush is slush in the term. Yeah. A lot of ability to move dollars around to the things you need. Slush is the wrong word. Let's just have that.
Flexibility.
A lot of flexibility. There we go. Better word. So anyway, so when it comes to investing, right, you have to distinguish between your operating funds and those capital needs because they have different timelines associated with them. So different strategies apply to each fund. Operating balances, remember, those are there for your operating needs. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute. Your cash during the year fluctuates a lot, so you don't want to be investing that money and locking it away, and then it turns out you need it, and you don't have it. You got to break some investments. It's things like that, and possibly a loss. Special reserve fund's a little different because that may be being spent over a period of years, right? You're saving. The point of the special reserve is that you can save up for these needs, accumulate money so that when you have these great big lump sum expenses that only happen once every 5 or 10 years, you've got the money there. And so you kind of know when they're coming, you can invest that money for a longer period of time, right? Because you don't need it tomorrow, right? You know you're gonna need it in 5 years. But in both cases, you wanna make sure that your investments mature in such a way that money is available when you need it, right? So it's a question of timing out. So let's just focus. I think we talked in generalities about the special reserve, but a picture's a little more helpful with the operating funds. So I made an assumption, I think, of a $7.5 million contribution to the special reserve. So that's taken out of here. But this would be your operating cash during the course of the year, and you can see that gray line is your cash position during the year. The little red dotted line, that's your that's your overall, what's happening to your cash balances. The green line is your revenue, and I think the point here is, I'm sorry, I confused myself for a second. The red line is your expenses, but that big blip on the left, that's the transfer, okay? So your expenses are pretty constant during the year, but the green line is your revenues. And as you know, or as you're familiar, right, those revenues come in two big bumps, typically in it's supposed to come in August, September, and then April, but like last year, I'm not gonna plan on that big cash infusion coming until January because the county is already saying it's late. So what happens to your cash in the meantime is that gray, right? You're in a cash position now, and it's just gonna go down, right? Until you get your taxes, it might be December, right? And so if you think about investments, even though you've got $6 million, you don't wanna invest $6 million for 5 months because you're not gonna have money 2 months from now. So you could invest $1 million for maybe 5 months, 5 or 6 months out to November, that would be okay, and then another $1 million until September, and then maybe another $1 million till June, right? And you could lock in interest rates that way, always leaving yourself with a little cushion. The difference between that, the height of that gray box, the gray thing, and those investments there is your liquid cash, right? Is that graph clear to everybody? The problem is it's
No, that graph
100%
was
clear to
very
me, so,
confusing to me.
what's that?
When I looked at that graph on my own, I looked at it. And
You got it
just
now?
said, more, yes.
Okay. I can do it again if you want.
Nope.
You okay? You sure? Okay. So yeah, so that gray is just where your cash is. The little blocks are your investments. And so then come January of 2027, you could create a new set of blocks, right? That always give you a little cushion. You always want something between the investments, represented by the blocks, and the cash, the total cash, which is the gray, where the gray is. Now, do you have to do that? Absolutely not. There's a couple reasons why you would. There's a couple reasons why you might not. So let's talk about those real quick. So the reason people like to invest, even it's not true today, but usually if you invest for a little longer period, you'll get a little better interest rate for a couple of reasons. People perceive investing for longer term as risky, a little more risky. These are U.S. government securities, so risk is all relative. But, so you get paid a little extra for that usually. And then also just because, if I'm giving you my money and I'm locking it up and I'm removing other opportunities that I might have to invest my money, I'm going to charge you for that. So typically you'll see interest rates, longer interest rates being a little bit higher. That's not true today. Why? Because everybody expects that the rates are going to come down, even though they haven't. So the market factors all these things in when it figures out what longer term interest rates are. So that's the first reason, is that often in normal markets, going out 6 months or 4 months might get you a few extra basis points, a few extra 100ths of a % of interest, and that can be attractive. The other reason you might want to do that is because it helps you plan, right? If you're trying to do your budgeting and you don't know what your interest income is going to be, it's a little bit harder. If you've locked up your interest rate, you know what it is, you can plan around what your interest is going to be. So those are the reasons to do it. The reasons not to do it are in the event you're uncertain about your liquidity, that would be one. Two would be, what's the advantage today? There really isn't. The rates are flat. You're not getting any extra interest for going out 6 months versus, the rates today. No one knows. Now they're talking about rates going up. It's a crapshoot. The one thing you can count on is that the rates that you're being offered reflect all of the market's knowledge about what's going to happen, right? You probably can't outsmart the market with your investment strategy over time, right? They've already figured it out. They know what the right rates are. So you're gonna ride on their coattails. Anything else is just a guess. You say, well, I'm gonna guess that rates are gonna go up, so I'm gonna stay liquid, or I'm guessing that rates are going down, so I'm gonna lock them in. You're just guessing at that point. So I would focus on those other reasons: predictability, a little bit, being able to lock in a little bit of an extra rate. I'd focus on those reasons for doing your investments, more than just saying, oh, I think we can do better than the market. I don't know, it's a discussion. When you do those investments, they're gonna be safe investments. If you go to your investment policy, I don't think I put it in here. Oh yeah, I did, this is great. So if we look at your investment policy, right, your priorities are safety, liquidity, and then return on investment, right? So your policy says, listen, we want to make sure it's safe. We want to make sure we have cash when we need it. Then we're going to look at those rates. If we can do a little bit better, while still meeting the safety and liquidity requirements, then we'll do that. Safety usually implies investments guaranteed by the federal government, which means you're going to be in U.S. government securities or investments that are backed by the U.S. government, which means CDs up to $250,000. Money market funds, that invest primarily in U.S. governments and government agencies, and then U.S. government agencies can get a little extra yield sometimes investing in those. But mostly my clients are doing treasuries or CDs or money markets. That's about the range of what they do. And like I said, longer term investments can provide a marginal yield for the same credit and give you a little bit more predictability. So that's why people invest for a little bit longer. A 2-month investment, I don't think it's worth it, but you look at those 4 months, 6 months, we get out there, we get back to here. Sorry, I'm going on a little bit longer than I wanted to, but we get out into this area where you're establishing more of a more solid base. You're not getting low. Maybe you can start looking 9 months and 1 year kind of investments, establish a base if you're keeping it.
So that red dotted line, the outflow.
Yep. Relative.
When it takes that drop, that's because we've invested in those.
No, I didn't
No?
do that. So, yeah,
Okay.
no, that red is just your expenditures. The reason it
Okay.
jumped up there is
Okay.
because that was the transfer.
Okay,
That was
Alright,
the
so
transfer to
sending
the
the
special
transfer
reserve, to the special
gotcha,
reserve.
okay,
Everything else is just, you just spend
Okay.
monthly.
all right.
Yeah.
Perfect, thanks.
That gray is the aggregate cash, the gray line sort of.
Okay.
That's your aggregate, including those investments, yeah. Hopefully that's all.
So it seems like though, when those investments mature, that gray area should show a bump.
No, yeah, so let me explain, let me clarify. That gray going down is your total cash, including investments.
Mhm.
So think of the difference between those blocks and the top of the gray as being your liquid cash. So in July, an investment matures and you have a little more liquid cash, right? So
Okay.
that matures,
Okay,
and then
Okay,
the next
all right.
one matures, and the next one matures. Because if we didn't, right, if we extended that longer,
mhm.
you'd have investments that are above the gray line. We can't have that, because then you're
Gotcha.
out of cash,
The blocks that represent what's locked up in investments.
Okay.
Of your total cash, which is great, that's why it's nested inside.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then the reason there's 3 different colors is, it's just to explain that they're longer investments,
Just different
Mhm.
investments,
to
yeah.
differentiate.
Yeah, I get that.
So Jamie, I think another potential way to look at this is if we didn't have things invested, would that slope of the gray line be more steep?
Nope, it would be the exact
Or
same
less?
thing. It'd be the exact same thing.
Okay,
All I'm doing with those blocks is showing you money that gets locked up,
okay.
right? That's the portion of that gray area that's locked up in investments.
Okay.
And you can't have more investments locked up. than-
I think Bella was asking the slope between May and the slope between November.
Yeah, where it
That
drops.
slope, if the investments didn't exist, those blocks didn't exist, it would have been a slightly steeper slope.
Yeah, it wouldn't,
because-
it'd be the
No.
exact same picture. It's the
Really?
yeah, no, it's the exact same picture, because, so, I'm glad you're asking me these questions, because it
Mhm.
makes me think about how I need to present this in the future.
Mhm.
The gray is that gray shape, here, I'm gonna go up here. It's easier.
Yeah.
This is your total cash and investments
Yep.
combined
Everything.
in the general fund.
Mhm.
Okay, so actually it's all funds, but that's okay.
All
So this is, right? And the reason it's going down is because you're spending this much every month.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, so it's going down by this much every month,
Because we're not having income coming.
because you're not having income, exactly.
But when
Right.
those
So, hang
mature,
on. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so this is made up of liquid cash
Yeah.
and your investment, right?
Mhm.
Your 3 investments. So what happens here, right, is this matures, right? So it drops by $1 million, but your liquid cash goes up by that
Okay.
same $1 million. So all that's happening is this ends and it
goes into your money market fund, right? No change, and then it just keeps going, you know. And so this is just
But I
showing
think
how
what
that
we're
money is
trying to
invested.
differentiate is that by a small percentage, it changes, 0.001, whatever it's called, because the interest will be then accumulated. The interest is not shown represented in the block, and so the interest gets paid at the end of that maturity, so it's a CD. So it's very, very tight. In all intents and purposes, it's the same slope.
Yeah.
But by like 0.00000 whatever, it might.
Yeah, it should actually be the same, because I
The
should
green
have,
line
I
will go
should
up a
in
little.
here, there's a little green line here.
Yeah.
That should include that interest, right?
Right.
So this
That
should
little
take
bit.
that all into account. But,
Right.
Okay.
yeah, we're really getting into
Into the weeds.
into the split hairs, in the split hairs category.
But that does answer the question. The green includes that
Yeah,
bump
green.
in the income
Yep.
because we have invested. And like you're saying, like you said too, the interest rates are kind of level whether we invest or whether we're in, I know we talked about being in Illinois funds and how
Yep.
they have pretty decent rates right now.
Better rates.
Yep, and better rates.
Yeah, it's almost the exact same looking out the 6 months. You're not getting any extra interest by. But you can still do it. I mean, it's really just, it's those two things that I was saying before, you know, predictability, whatever the other one is.
But I like that this also shows visually that we only get tax income twice a year.
Yeah.
And it's not like a business where we're getting income every month generated. We get it when the county is releasing it to us, and then that also is interrupted by some of the processes that are going on with the county as well. So it makes sense, we never want our gray to meet the red dotted line if we can help
Are you
it.
sure, Zach?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then, so that's why we leave a cushion, you know, so leaving $2 million, that leaves you an extra month or two. That's why we're picking 10 or 12 months, you know, for a general fund balance. Okay, so this is just the operating fund. So then you've got the special reserve too, right? And that's the one where we need to plan that out a little bit more carefully, right? Because that's money you don't need for a while, but we probably can predict when we need it. So that's money you could probably invest safely for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as we're doing it in a way that it matures. Like if we think, just randomly, if we think there's a huge repair project, a new roof that's gonna cost $2 million, and we need it in 5 years, but the roof might fail in 3 years,
Yeah.
that might give us a reason to invest for just 3 years and make sure we have $2 million in 3 years. In most events, you're not gonna be, regardless, you're not gonna be investing any money for more than 3 years, let's say. You know, 5 years would be an extraordinarily long time for you, because essentially you're saying, oh, we don't need it for 5 years. Someone could say, well, why do you need it all then? You know? But that's not the case. We have a very well-defined plan. We're saving up for stuff. We have the branch. We have lots of uses for that money.
Yep.
We want to make sure it's available when we need it.
Yep. And we have our capital needs plan for, is it 20 years, Rich?
20 years.
20 years.
Current price is $12 million.
Yep.
I have a question. Valerie, you made the statement just a few minutes ago with regards to revenue, that we're not like a business where we don't have income coming in. But with regards to the revenue, I know we've got the property taxes, replacement taxes, but we have passport services where we collect fees. We have other things that do generate revenue
We do.
for
We
us,
have,
right?
it's not zero revenue that comes in monthly, but it is minimal. Like Jamie said earlier, 88% of our revenue comes from the property taxes. So about 88% of our revenue comes in at those 2 times a year.
Right. But I just wanted to be
Yes,
clear
thank you.
because you mentioned that there was no revenue. There is.
I oversimplified, I apologize.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure, because I just want to be clear on that.
Yep.
Thank you. And Jamie, you did mention that, right now, in terms of just investment options, Illinois Funds is offering better or interest rates that are comparable to, you said about the 6-month mark?
Yeah.
Did I hear you correct that you said there may be other options a little bit further extended period of time?
Well, sure. Oh, well, not longer
Well, yeah, but, wait, what do you mean? So longer-term investments?
Right, I want to
Yeah.
get that clear.
So the problem with longer term, for the operating funds, right, the longer term investments, you don't want to do too much because you run that risk. that
Right.
You're going to be invested, and
Correct.
you're going to need liquidity.
Correct.
For the special reserve, again, we should model out when you're going to need cash.
Mhm.
And then you could have those discussions about whether to lock in rates or not. I don't know off the top of my head where those rates start turning up.
Right.
They do at some point, but they might be well beyond your comfort level
Right,
for
right.
locking money up. But that's something, when the time comes and we look at a plan, we look at that spending plan for the special reserve a little more carefully.
Mhm.
Once you know what you're gonna transfer in, we can start looking at what those rates
Yeah.
are and what the options might be. Yeah.
Sure. I just wanted to get clarity with the fact that I thought I heard you say you knew of investment options that could return more.
Yeah, no, I was actually referring to something slightly different, which is that I think, if you're referring to what I think you're referring to, is that in normal markets, and this is not a normal
Right,
market.
yes.
In normal markets, you get paid more for investing
Longer.
longer. So
Right.
even 6 months, you
Right.
could get a few extra basis points. 1 year, you get, 0.25%
Mhm.
more. It's just that's just not the environment we're in.
Not, yeah. Mhm. Thank you.
And these are things, just for the rest of the board, these are things that Treasurer Botello and I have talked about regularly, and the Finance Committee has been talking about, as far as why we've been leaving money in Illinois funds and how the rates look. And so I just wanted to make sure we shared that with the full board and with the public who's paying attention, because this is all very complicated.
So that's what I had, the sum total. I hope that was helpful. Hope it clarified some things and didn't make some things more confusing. It's finance, so it's not easy.
Can we get a copy of your
Yes.
presentation?
I have it, I'll email it out. And did you have the projection we talked about, the projection we showed last time you were here? I think you mentioned it earlier. That we
Yeah,
could
I
show?
can, yeah, sure.
That would be
So,
great.
that's gonna be different. I didn't put it in here.
Okay.
And I apologize. How should we do that?
Do you mind if we take a 5-minute recess so I can get Jamie set up?
Sorry about that. No,
Okay.
She's asking us for reasons.
Yes.
I just have to switch to my, do we have to vote on that?
Yeah, I think so.
All in favor of 5-minute recess?
Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you.
8:16.
So thanks for your patience. I mentioned the projection earlier, and so what we try and do, what I like to do, and we've been at this for a while, so I've got a lot of history, is to take a look at your income statement, start with that. Historical, so this is, if we go back, and this is in prior presentations, some of this history, 2000, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I mean, some of that is ancient history, right, that goes back to COVID. But we've been tracking through annually and following your financial performance, and we use that history to then project forward, right? So at this point in the model, 2026 reflects year-to-date performance, through, we've got April year-to-date, so it's kind of based around that. So you can see that you've had a lot of volatility. I mean, I don't know how much time you want me to spend here, but you can see you've had a lot of volatility because there was a lot of volatility in the revenue stream with your levy for a couple of years there before we got that right-sized. So we had income, we had negative, but now we're back on this sort of 25 track here where we've got the revenue balanced out, and it still bounces around a little for technical reasons related to timing of revenues. But now we're kind of on a more smooth track with your revenues, capturing what you can legally capture under the tax cap. You've got your other revenues. You're going to see these this investment revenue drop as we transfer money to the special reserve and rates come down, right? So this is why budgeting is important, right? Is right here with your investment income, right? If we're budgeting around that income, we have to take into account that it's going to drop in the budgeting. That's a pretty significant change. But you're pretty stable. If we project out right now, and I'm going to show you the other thing I think that Valerie wanted me to show you more importantly in a minute. But if we project out right now, we're pretty stable at a reasonable level of income each year that lets you continue to support those capital projects, maintain your fund balance. So this looks like a right-sized type of budget right now. After all that, up and down stuff from the prior years, it seems like we've balanced that out. This is condensed. I actually have this tracking every line item that you track in your budget. I've just got it condensed here for making it easier. But the most important thing here is actually below that income statement, where we're going to continue to track your fund balances, and these are aggregate, I'm not tracking them individually, and your ability based on that, like if we pick 75% fund balance requirement, right, if that's our target, we can track, is everybody following? Have I skipped ahead too much? You following what's going on here with the pro forma? So let me take a step back. So we got our revenues and expenses. That creates our net ordinary income, right? That's the excess that we're generating each year from operations. What are we going to do with that? Well, you have a beginning fund balance. The net income increases your fund balance, okay? Because that's what net income does. It just increases your fund balance. Then we're going to transfer a given amount out of the general fund into the special reserve fund. So there it goes, out of the general fund and into the special reserve fund here, okay? And so why did we do that? Because we're going to target for this exercise, what I have loaded up, 75%, 9 months of expenses as a general fund balance. Everything else goes into the special reserve. Why? Because we know from that capital plan, we know we have all these expenses coming down the pike, right? Those are all coming. That's all in your special reserve plan, in your capital needs analysis. So we have to make sure that we're doing okay funding those needs, okay? And so a portion of this net ordinary income stays in the general fund to maintain you at 75% of expenditures. The rest goes in here, right, into the special reserve, and then we're paying for those expenses that we need, that we have planned from the special reserve plan. The rest is kind of, some's going to be an additional cushion just in case something else goes bad, but the rest is what we're going to use for a branch, right? So this tells you a good starting point, as I was saying before, good starting point for a branch. And so this is the point of the projection. You know, what if we want to change this? I'm not going to swear to you that this will work because we're doing this on the fly. We want to change this to 100%. You know, whoops, oh, I can go back. Hang on. I like to lock it so I don't screw anything up.
And it's so easy in Excel just to type in the wrong. Yep.
And then you don't realize it. No. Okay, so if we just want to make that 100%, oops, see, like I say. I don't know. Hang on, give me a minute. This is the problem with doing this stuff. Okay, hang on, get back there. So if we want to change this, we want our fund balance to be 100%. Really sensitive. Can't get there in 1 year because we took too much out already. But get there. Okay, so now we're going to maintain 100% balance, right? So that means we're going to have a little bit less in our general, you know, in the special reserve to play around with. So that's what we're going to play with, you know, like where do we want those balances to be? How much cushion do we want to leave in the special reserve fund? How much is left to drop out at the end of the day for our branch, you know? And those are the numbers we'll mess with. So this is we can't answer that question tonight. If you want to play with the model, we can do a couple of things, but just to let you know that this is where this is all headed, is towards something that shows us whether the economics of the branch are doable or not. Now, bear in mind, you're gonna have a branch, right? We're gonna have more operating costs too. So this net income, right, might drop. Well, then what does that look like, right? Because now, right now, it looks like we have almost $1 million going into the special reserve every year. But some of that's going to get eaten up by cost of operating a branch, right? So then we have to make sure that works out. So anyway, so it's nice to have the model. That's the whole point of the projection model, is to make sure you're not getting yourselves into a situation where you can't afford something that you want to do.
And I think, and like you said, we can't say right now what the exact numbers look like, but given our net ordinary income and the balance that's in special reserve, it is reasonable for us to be looking at a branch at this point fiscally.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. It feels like that's something you can do for sure.
I have a question with regards to foreseeing the growth of the library in terms of a branch. Jamie, yes, Niles is pretty much built out. So if we transfer all these funds and we have a strategic plan for potentially a second branch, and then real estate is not available, what happens then with those special funds? Because they're capital improvement funds.
Yep. Then that's a question we have to decide. You know, we have to think about, you know.
But legally, what would happen now? Like, so let's just say we're sitting on some money, and there is no land available.
And there is no land available. Well, you have the plan, the money's there. That becomes a legal question.
Right. Well,
I can't answer that question for you.
That's something that we need to
yeah.
explore.
The conversation I've had with our attorney at KTJ is that our plan is so broad legally. It literally just says special reserve must be used for capital projects. We can change what those specific plans are. We could change to remodeling this building, for example. So we could build out parts of the third floor that potentially are eligible for building out, and we could stop, we would look at potentially levying less if we needed to, and the special reserve funds that we have will stay there until we spend them down on whatever appropriate capital projects there are, even if we can't get real estate. We would just need to do like the capital projects that are in the capital needs assessment, which, as Rich said, are about $13 million projected out over the next 20 years, but those costs rise over each year as well, which is part of the projection. So it's actually recommended that you get that assessment done every 3 to 5 years because of changes in the market and things like that. So our plan is flexible for a reason, as long as it goes towards capital needs. If we need to pivot on whether or not we do a branch, we could plan more remodeling here and still spend those funds legally.
Thank you. That's a good discussion that I think we need to explore as a board, because it's, you know, we're potentially looking at building up a considerable reserve amount, and I think it's worthwhile discussing what ifs. And so I'm looking forward to that.
No, I think that's it, yeah, you can shift. I was answering a slightly different question, which I think is where you were going, was we just can't spend the money. What do we
Right.
do?
Right.
But I think, you know, as Valerie, I think, is indicating, there's plenty of other things you could probably do with that money.
Mhm.
But
Great, thank you.
that's a discussion. I think.
Thank you, Jamie. We really appreciate you being
All
here.
right, I hope this was helpful. It's always a pleasure to see you. I'm looking forward to keeping this moving forward. The projection's really a lot of fun. It's always a great thing to have, great thing to work with.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you gonna have the presentation available for us or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it out via
Okay,
email.
thank you.
The model's probably not ready to
Got it.
circulate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So Valerie, this part with the statistics that you provided, is that part of this discussion?
Yes, this is, and anybody who wants to talk now, whether it's what you just brought up, Treasurer Botello, or just about the projected budget, additional budget expenses above operations that I put into the board packet, this would be the time that we can discuss those as well.
My thoughts are kind of in line with Roberto's, where we have to put at least 1.4 something, so let's just call it 1.5, right? We have to push that over to make us immune from challenges.
So I believe.
If we were to put any more than that, we lock it in a special reserve. Until we have a project locked in, we can just leave it in the general fund, and we can still use it for a special reserve project. That doesn't change anything. And so I don't see the point in moving it unless we have to. So let's just, my recommendation would be just move the 1.5, maybe make it 2.
Yeah, get it a little past.
You get it a little
what it
padding,
was.
so we're at
Right.
178% instead of like 199%, But I just don't see the point in going beyond that, because it's money that's in our account. What fund it sits in is kind of immaterial until we actually need to spend it. That's when
Except
it
for
becomes
the
relevant.
challenges, that's the.
Right,
that's
but
the-
as long as we're below the 200% with by a comfortable margin, which 2 million would do,
Yeah.
even 1.5 would be a little, it'd be close, but 2 million would be plenty.
But think about more income though coming in, and maybe the
Yeah,
2
yeah.
would be good, or even 2.5.
But what I'm saying is, if it's 2 and then we get an excess of income, then we can move another 500 later, we don't have to
Well,
move
that's,
it.
okay, yeah, maybe just as you see the numbers go up,
Yeah,
you transfer.
right.
I understood him to say between 4 and 5 million.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Why are
that's,
you saying
I'm-
1.5?
Because 1.5 is the minimum. 1.4 something was the minimum.
to get
The
us
reason he-
in,
To get
Under
us
the
under the
Miller rule.
200%.
Oh, okay.
And he said then the 4 to 5 would get us to like a
12
10
months,
month,
10 to
no,
12
10
months.
month reserve.
right,
And so I kind of like, why not have a 12-month reserve?
Right,
Closer
so
to
that would
12.
be like the 4 million.
Yeah, exactly. No, that would be closer to 1.5.
No, the
No.
12-month is the 5, is.
Oh, the 12 month,
five
sorry,
million.
12 month is the 4
Or
month,
is it?
yeah.
Yeah,
And then 1.5 would put us at maybe 14 months, 15 months, whatever.
Yeah.
but
Given
we're
the
still
volatility
under
in Cook,
under
we're still under
the
the
Miller
200%.
rule,
Yeah.
yeah, which,
Given the volatility in Cook County taxes, I don't want to play around with that. You know what I mean? Like, the last thing we want is like,
you put it away and
oh,
now
great,
you're
you
stuck.
put it away and taxes are delayed by 7 months. God knows what Cook County's doing. So, you get delayed by 7 months and now you're like, ooh, we're gonna
Crunch
pay
time.
the, now am I gonna pay the bills? There are smaller institutions which work with state government, which have had those issues come up because of our budgetary
They've
issues.
had to borrow,
Yeah, and so we don't,
it's not good.
we have the money, we're not required to put away more than a certain amount,
Mhm.
why bother? That's kind of my thinking on it. Do what's required with a little bit of fudge, and then,
You stay right under.
exactly.
Okay.
And then just keep monitoring it every 3 months, and, okay, we need to move a little more, let's move it. It's not, takes a little ordinance to, or, not even. Yeah, we just say
Just
we're
a
moving it,
motion.
right?
Yeah,
Just a motion to move it.
Probably.
Is it
Is-
in-
I'm gonna add
Yeah,
just one
sure.
thing. I am in favor of the idea of having, a 12-month, reserve for operating expenses. So,
Yeah.
I'll just share that, because
100%.
I believe that's, wise, as you
Yeah,
mentioned.
you meant 12-month minimum, right?
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes.
more than that would be
Mhm,
good.
Yep.
We don't have an actual
No.
action item, so we would have
No,
to
I
put
would
it on.
put that
next
on
week.
for next month.
Yes,
I
move that
wanted to
social
have the
security.
discussion first so that we knew what to put in the ordinance for next month.
Okay.
We have done it via ordinance in the past, so I would just follow that same
Okay.
format.
That's fine. What happens if we get challenged between now and then? Do we have to,
I don't know, I could ask our attorney.
yeah, that would be a good question to know the
Mhm.
answer to. Hopefully whoever this guy is going around is
So
not
that-
listening to our meeting.
How much are we gonna move then? Do you have to know now?
I don't have to know now, we can even, so I've actually put it on the agenda, the last time we did this, which was in August, I put it blank, and we gave 2 recommendations based on what
Okay.
Jamie had said, and then the board votes on the final amount
Okay, and that's gonna come up,
next month.
okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor of 2 mil.
And as far as the additional projects above operating costs that I listed in my memorandum, are there any questions about those projects? Because we listed everything that would be above my $10,000 spending authority.
Help us out, what
I had a
page?
couple questions. It's pages 53 through until Jamie's stuff.
Yeah, but which one of the pages? There's a lot of pages. Valerie?
So I had a question on page, and I'm not looking forward and backwards, but I thought on page 64, there's a space use assessment item budgeted for $70,000, and I was wondering if that was not what we already did downstairs.
So a space use assessment would be bringing in an architect to look at the entire building, and based on the collection that we have, our current shelving, what they know of other libraries, they would help us say, well, you could use this space more for seating or more for computer use and less for shelving, so here's how we recommend you change the space around.
But I understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm wondering then what we did we not just do a space assessment of the lower level? We did not.
No,
This is different.
this would include the lower level actually, and it would help them plan out where to put tables and things in the lower level. It is something that our current architect does, and the assessment itself, just to be clear, would be between $9,000 and $13,000, depending upon if we include the lower level or not. But this also would include furniture or things to help meet one of their recommendations or some of their recommendations, depending
Okay.
upon what they
So
are.
that's-
That's why the cost is in there.
That's good to know that the assessment itself is
Yeah.
not $70,000.
No, the assessment itself
Wow.
is between $9,000 to $13,000. And then this would be for additional furniture or something if we wanted to move forward with it in the next fiscal year.
And in order to get the company that would be doing that, we would do the usual, where we look.
We
Would
could,
be-
so we have the choice of either putting out an RFP for this, or we could work with our current architect firm because we already have a relationship with them. Either would be appropriate.
But all these things are, when they come up, you're just kind of
We
laying
have
them
to
out. When
bring
they come
them
up,
to
you're
you
gonna ask them anyway,
Yes,
so.
we'd have to bring it to the
Yeah.
board anyway if it was above my $10,000
Right, yeah,
spending threshold. This is just estimating budget amounts that could come up and asking the board if you are comfortable with us budgeting for these items in the next fiscal year. so that when we bring the budget forward, you're not surprised by any large ticket items that we're bringing forward.
It's gonna cost $100,000 for a branch feasibility?
We'll end the commercial real estate consultant depending upon how much work they do for us.
Okay.
And that's just, again, an estimate based on talking to other libraries.
Okay.
And the size of branch we're thinking about, and whether or not there's available real estate to buy versus us partnering with another government
Right.
organization and renting and sharing space. There's many different considerations.
I do have a question with regards to the door access controls.
Sure.
Was that not done already when we had a discussion about having the keyless systems?
Richard, can you talk about the expansion, the proposed expansion?
Sure, we have two proposed expansions coming up in the budget, as you'll see next month. One is to deal with the existing door access controls that are staff doors. We're expanding that, and we've already applied for a grant through the Secretary of State's office, a security grant that includes some other stuff. Additionally, we have already budgeted and planned with the lower level remodel for all the study rooms to have door access controls as well that will work with our Communico product that the board approved to renew for another 3 years, so that patrons can self-reserve rooms, and they will have access to those rooms with a code that's temporary, and so the door access controls will work hand in hand with them being able to make those reservations, enter the locked room, the room will stay locked, and whoever they get the code to during their reservation time, that code will be active and available to them. Those are the two things that door access controls are in the memo. Or is that the memo, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that explain?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity
absolutely.
with what
Yes,
we've approved in the past.
We didn't do a door access control for every single door. We strategically, our first phase was strategic to hit the main doors that staff are using on a day-to-day basis. Group areas like the staff doors up here, the staff doors, I won't go into the details, but it's a multi-year, multi-phase project.
Got it, thank you.
Valerie,
Yes.
could you just mention, because it's not in here, the CEM budget that you're thinking about putting in that we talked about, right? I sent a
Sure.
memo.
I didn't put any operational expenses in here as far as what the department is planning to expend, but Victoria actually met with Annie recently to talk about her budget, and we do plan on, for operational purposes, increasing the marketing department budget to 1.5 to 2% of the operating budget based on what Stacy recommended.
Can you speak to what the HR curriculum consultant is? That to develop SOPs for the library?
So, Cassandra, would you be able to explain more what you're looking for in an HR consultant?
Yes, so I'm actually looking for assistance with creating more professional development curriculum for staff. Because at this point, we don't have a foundation of consistency with training and development, which having a consultant come in and kind of analyze how we could better our processes and distribute this appropriately so that we have consistency in our onboarding practices and our training capabilities would really just be very beneficial for the staff in general. And it would help our supervisors to have curriculum so that they're not, missing, annual regulatory compliance trainings, or if they're building curriculum for specific roles like, unconscious bias or working with the public, conflict resolution, there's things that some of these roles really require that consistency and that training. And it's something that it would take work, and I think having a consultant to help us lay that foundation would be helpful. I'm sorry if that was long-winded, but
Thank you.
I hope that makes sense.
I can go again.
I know the hypocrisy, Rich.
So it is something, the consistency in onboarding and training in general is something that the union consistently asked us for, and it helps meet goal 3 of our strategic plan to improve our culture, improve consistency, communication. And so to build that, just like where we hired Stacy for the CEM department. Cassandra could build all of this on her own, but it would take a significantly longer amount of time than if we bring in a professional consultant that helps to meet with the departments and see what their specific needs are and goes through and helps us build something that's relevant to a library. A lot of the trainings that we can have access to, and they're wonderful through HR Source, through WebJunction, through ILA, they're very broad, but they're not specific to this institution or specific roles like Cassandra was saying, and we really want to bring someone in-house and help us streamline onboarding and continuing education. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I got one more.
Sure.
The marketing ticketing system, that's for staff to be able to put in requests to the graphic team and
Yes.
for marketing materials and things like that.
Yes, right now.
I can't believe we've never had that before.
No, right now it all goes through email, and it's very hard to manage for the CEM team, the requests that they're getting in. And so one of the recommendations I believe Stacy will be making is that we get a ticketing system. That's one of the top priorities that she's been talking about with Annie.
That will be really good.
Mhm. And it will also help not just the CEM team, but the staff who make the requests to see where their requests are at in the process, make sure that everything went through to the right person, that it's been seen, it's being worked on. So it helps across the board.
I do have one more thing, sorry.
Oh,
It's not a
sure.
question though, it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, going through this packet and looking at the statistics from 2023 to 2025, it felt so good.
Mhm.
We are doing really good.
Yeah.
So I'm just really proud of all that. I just have to say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our team has done a fantastic job, and a lot of libraries went through basically rebounding after COVID, because COVID has been challenging, and the way people live in the world has completely changed, and it's nice to see that people are still consistently coming back to the library, and our numbers are growing in most areas. The one place that it has declined a little bit is the loan of physical materials at about 20%, but you see the loan of digital materials has gone up by about 40%, so it's still a net increase.
But it's so nice to be able to say to anybody who says otherwise that library visits are down. That's not true.
It's not true, yeah.
It's not true.
And I did,
Program attendance is up almost 100%. It's amazing.
we even got from the state library when we submitted our IPLAR, they were like, your program numbers look great, good job. And that's really nice to hear. Like, we've worked really hard, and the return on investment shows in our data.
Done with this discussion?
I am. I don't know if anyone, I know I've kind of monopolized that one for a change, so I don't feel too bad about that.
No. Okay, so I move to,
Oh, we don't need to adopt anything right now.
no,
It's
no,
just a
I'm moving
discussion.
for the
Oh,
next.
sorry about that.
I'm moving it to, well, should we discuss it first, I guess?
We have to go back up to number 4. actually.
Yeah.
Oh, got it,
Push
yeah.
things up, so if you wanna,
Okay, I move to approve the consent agenda.
all in favor?
Aye. Okay, I'm, next one is
Give me one second,
5C,
let me
so.
take,
Correct.
let me take the vote.
It was all in favor,
Second,
so.
Suzanne. Yeah,
6-0.
oh, you're just doing it that way?
Yeah,
Okay.
we did voice vote.
That's even faster.
Okay, 6-0.
Thank you.
So we should discuss closing the library to the public on Friday, October 9th for a biennial staff and service day. I think this is pretty non-controversial. I don't see anything to discuss, to be honest, but anybody who wants to pipe up.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on that
Right.
before we take a vote?
Okay, I move to close the library to the public on Friday, October 9th for a biannual staff in-service day.
Okay, all in favor?
Okay.
All right, voice vote.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we've got the proposed intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Niles and Niles Main District Library for use of the senior center program room. Yeah, it seems pretty uncontroversial to me.
So exciting, we've been
yeah.
working on it for like a year and a half.
Yeah,
That's great.
I mean, anybody have any thoughts? I wasn't gonna move. All right. I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Niles and the Niles Main District Library for use of the Senior Center program.
Second.
Suzanne?
All in favor?
Aye. All right. I move to enter executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees under 5 ILCS 120/2C1.
Second. It doesn't matter.
I'll keep it consistent, I'll do Suzanne.
All in favor?
Aye.
8:53 PM.
All right.
in session.
Nope,
Something's
no,
not
no.
working.
Okay.
All right, Rich?
We probably don't need notes on this.
Yeah.
All right, back in open session of the Niles Main District Public Library Board, May 20th at 9:27 PM, 2026.
Trustee Shealy?
Present.
Present.
Trustee Kazir? Trustee Schoenfeld? Here. Treasurer Botello?
Present.
Secretary Toy?
Here.
President Keen?
Here. Thank you. There is no action from executive session, so we are on to other. Does anyone have any other?
I do. I'd like to inform the board that we are going to move forward with getting a credit card with an extended limit from what we have now to address that sometimes our credit card basically gets full by the end of the month because increasing costs and especially related to IT purchases that more and more often require credit card purchase, which we did talk to the Finance Committee about as well. And also, we don't have final numbers yet, but we did go through the bid process for the lower level remodel and the other projects that were put into that bid process. So we will have final numbers for you in the June meeting. But we did have bids for every project that was listed. Hopefully all have qualified bids, but we had bids for all of them. So it was a really good process. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's 9:28.